I'm Anthony. I'm a mental health nurse by background, and obviously I've got a private website called beforethought.uk, and I'm here today with you, Sarah, and we're starting a project together of just having a weekly conversation about all sorts of things.
Yeah, and I'm really excited for this, Anthony. I'm Sarah. Hi, everyone, and I'm a therapist by background, and have offered and worked with all sorts of different therapies. Currently working from my private practice, which is Well of Being, and doing some NHS work as well. So that's where I am right now, but really excited to be doing this work together, Anthony. Do you know, I think when I first came across this different way of being, different way of understanding health and mental health, I think I saw something that I'd never seen before in the years that I'd been offering therapy. And I think that's been transformational. But I think what I started to see was it's so much simpler than I'd been seeing it to be. From my training, from the way therapy, mental health practices in the NHS, and this isn't a criticism, it's just about seeing the differences and the way that this understanding helps me to be able to just step back and see the wellness in somebody and help them to see that, because I think the nature of practice, or certainly my practice before that, was to focus on the ill health, not on the health.
I totally resonate with that, Sarah, just in terms of my practice. I think like maybe over the past 8 years I've worked as a mental health nurse, and certainly thinking back to my training, there's a huge focus on understanding mental illness on all spectrums, you know, whether we're talking about mild anxiety or stress from our jobs, all the way across to the severe end of debilitating and illnesses that impact us on so much that we just can't function anymore. That I think the training and the experience working in that industry within a medical model certainly is very much emphasized about us becoming experts really on all of these diagnoses and treatments. I mean, we use the term treatment.
Yeah, and I think within that, you know, it's understandable that stress levels within the NHS, within staff, are really high, because being the expert on other people, and within that, the idea of finding a solution for them and being the person that kind of helps them to get better is hugely stressful, especially when the work gets busier and busier and busier. And I guess for me, what I've really started to see is that, I guess, and this is my take on it, you know, it might very well disagree with how the NHS sees it, but my take on it is those diagnoses don't serve us. Us trying to be the experts doesn't serve us, because actually we're taking away from the wealth of wisdom and insight and health that those people that we're working with already have. You know, why are we using our wisdom for somebody else's lives? Surely their wisdom is going to be best for them.
And I think that's been the biggest shift. You know, like it was a couple of years ago, I think 2 or 3 years ago, when I came across just even the term innate health. You know, that this blew my mind in a way, that like, hang on a minute, how come out of all my training experience of learning these therapies and ways to help people, and everybody is in this sort of play, comes into this industry with all wanting to do a good job, you know, and it just blew my mind that I hadn't come across innate help. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why hasn't that been on my radar for 8 years? It was crazy
Yeah.
when I was thinking about it. And I think that's what really sort of sparked my interest in looking in a different direction. So it's like in life is often opposites. And the more we've delved into talk about problems and illness, there is a different direction to look sometimes, which is not always obvious to us.
Mm.
But
I think,
yeah, go on.
no, sorry, Anthony, you carry on.
And I think the more I looked in that direction, incredible things started to happen.
Yeah. And you know, I mean, I hope you don't mind me saying this. You being around you when I first met you was just a lovely space to be, but actually seeing the presence that you bring to a space now, the calm, the depth, the acceptance of being with you is just incredible. And that's been so apparent as you've gone through this journey. This idea of just being rather than having to do all the time.
Yes, yeah. And I think that's a really good point, Sarah, is that it's so natural for us to focus on what we need to do differently, isn't it? That whenever usually like that strategy works quite well, you know, to try to solve a problem, particularly like if you've got a car and it develops, something's going wrong, it's not running, the whole focus is on trying to diagnose, work out what the problem is, and then do something about it. But it's almost like with our mental health or our well-being, our emotions and feelings, we get into such a pickle trying to fathom all of that out. And it's almost like we move further away from the thing that we're looking for.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if we use your mechanics analogy, you know, if you look at an engine, I guess to find out what's wrong, you're not going to kind of look at what's right. You only look at what's wrong. And that's fine for an engine because you need that bit to be working because all the others won't work otherwise. But actually, I think as human beings, we work incredibly well, even if there are bits of us that have kind of, you know, slowed down a bit or kind of not quite how we want them to be. We don't need necessarily to do anything with that. We just trust that the process of the rest of us being okay and our wisdom and our kind of sense of wellness that never leaves us will do that work for us and take us back to that place of well-being again without actually doing a lot other than accepting where we are, accepting the nature of how we work, and accepting that we always, our mental health and our physical health, our bodies are always striving for well-being. We get in the way of that sometimes, I think.
And that's the difference, isn't it? That as a car engine or something mechanical is being built from the outside in.
Yeah.
And what you're pointing to there is what I'm hearing is that as human beings or any living thing, it's the opposite. We grow from the inside out.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point in life, in terms of our minds, well, we get into trouble because we use our minds to take us away from that, whatever you want to name it, that thing, that power that's been, that process behind life, that is us.
Absolutely.
That place.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, what I see in this is as we experience life, we kind of, collect thoughts, beliefs, experiences along the way, and our brains, our minds hold on to those things, and we start to think they're us, or that they mean something about who we are, and we get caught up in that. And at the moment, we both work in the NHS in an eating disorder service, and we see clearly there how the outside of us, how the outside world is kind of so central to how we work to try and move people through their eating disorders. And yet it's not about what's on the outside, because that's never who we are. Who we are is much deeper than that. It's beyond our ability to think and remember and experience events. And we haven't always looked to that place to find the peace of mind that all of us naturally want, I think.
Yes. And that's the ironic thing, isn't it? That when you really filter it down from all the complexity, whether it's a job that we're trying to strive for, or extra money, or a certain way of living, ultimately behind all of that, as a human being, we're wanting a nice feeling ultimately.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get that nice feeling in all these different ways. Even when we're not in a nice feeling, we're trying to get that nice feeling.
When we start to step back from our minds and our busy thoughts, and we start to see them as stories that our minds are creating rather than truths, then we can start to, I think, get curious about, okay, do I have to believe that? Is believing that helping me? Is there something else I can look to? Our wisdom, call it what you may, intuition, gut feeling, but that's where our best guide is, and that's where there's a knowing of what's best for us rather than a belief of what's best for us.
And so it's like a combination of, I guess, understanding the way our minds work, who we are beyond just our thinking and our feelings, moment to moment.
Yeah.
And seeing the nature of existence in a way, isn't it? That existence is now.
Yes. And that's all it can ever be.
That's all it can ever be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's gone before can only ever show up in the here and now in our minds. And I think we get tricked by our minds to believe when we're in that space. I've often worked with people who have experienced trauma, and they may have, what they will term as flashbacks to that event, and it looks very real now. And of course it does when our mind's bringing that to the forefront, but we can never be in that space again, because that's past and gone. We're in the here and now. And I think for me, that alone brings comfort.
Yes. It's such a simple thing to say, but the implications are profound if we can really grasp and realize that the past and the future are really just mental constructs that we're creating in our minds as we think now. So a bit like that sign, in the pubs where it says free beer tomorrow. Tomorrow never actually comes, does it? Because every time you
love that. Yeah. And you know what? I think we innocently spend a lot of our time waiting for better things tomorrow. And actually, by focusing over there at tomorrow, that we can't know how it's going to be, we miss seeing what's here right now. We miss the living that we're doing right now often.